It's almost that time of year where we get blessed with a new version of Blender. 5.1 isn't quite as feature-packed as 5.0, but I've been using it for a few weeks now, and I've identified 5 or 6 different features that are definitely worth knowing about, so that's what we're going to be covering in this video today. Before we start, I have a new course called the Essential Material Guide. When I first picked up Blender 8 years ago, I felt overwhelmed by the shader editor. Over time, I developed a toolkit of techniques for creating literally any material I can imagine. Now I've distilled that knowledge into the Essential Material Guide. In 3 hours across 23 tutorials, you'll learn how to master material layering, realistic micro scratches, edgeware masks, camera interactive techniques, and so much more. If you're a beginner or even an intermediate Blender user and you would like to make materials like a pro, the Essential Material Guide is the course for you. Grab the course today and you'll get access to free future updates. Right now you can save 35% on all of my courses using the code SAVE35 at Gumroad. So you may remember that with Blender 5.0 we had a huge change going from OpenGL to Vulkan as an option for the backend API. That basically just means that we have a new tool that's used to actually render out the user interface. Now with Blender 5, because it had just been added, it was kind of an optional thing that you had to select, whereas now if you go to System and Display Graphics, Vulkan should be selected automatically. This is now the default in Blender, unless you're using a Mac, in which case it uses a different backend. One gripe that I've always had with Blender is that it can be quite difficult to find what you're looking for in the preferences menu. You have all of these different sections here, and sometimes things aren't where you expect them to be anyway. But then on top of that, you have like drop downs with sections inside sections, inside sections, inside sections. Right, and it's just impossible sometimes to find exactly what you're looking for. But now we have this search here, and if I search for object, you can see that it's highlighted some specific areas here, and this is everywhere where the word object appears. And then if we click on one of these, it will highlight these, and it's because we have these options inside. That's a object. Same with key map. It highlights everyone. I absolutely love this. This has been implemented really well. It works fantastically, and it's going to cut down on a lot of time searching through these damn menus. We don't talk about the preferences menu very often on this channel, but I've actually just realized that there's another change that's been added. Under the extensions tab, we can now actually update all of the extensions at once, which is brilliant, instead of having to go through and do all of these. And I've also noticed that they've added these, which is showing you the version that I currently have installed and the version that you will update to once you press one of these buttons. So now we can just press update all, and that will go through and that will download all of the updates from the internet if you've enabled that feature. Probably the most exciting new feature in 5.1 is the inclusion of a raycast node inside the material shader editor. We already had a raycast node in geometry nodes, if that sounds familiar, but we've never been able to do it inside materials before. Raycasting is basically the idea that in 3D, what we can do is measure things by sending out a sample, basically a ray, and all it does, it measures, did it collide with something, which this one has, and what distance did it collide at for the most part. Right, so that's actually very useful information, and now we have that inside materials, which is going to allow two different objects to kind of communicate with each other inside the material. So I'll give you an example of how this works. If we select this, give it a new material, and get the raycast node, you can see the first setting here is hit, and all this is going to do is send out loads of rays, and it's just going to give us a different color depending on whether they hit something or not. So if we look at this, you can see we get the outline of the shape of the monkey, and it responds in real time as well. And it's just telling us which parts of the surface of this plane are basically visible to the monkey. Right now, it does actually have a length setting as well, so you can decide how far out these rays are going to go before they stop. So we can pull this down if you only want to get the chin of the monkey to be included, or you can turn it right up if you want it to be included at a higher distance. The second one is called self-hit, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It measures only rays that hit another part of the same mesh. So if I just select this and extrude up and extrude out, you can see we now have white on the top and bottom of here, and that's because they're directly looking at each other, so rays are going to hit the same mesh. We have a hit distance, which once again is very self-explanatory. It shows us the same thing as is hit, but it gives us a gradient based on the distance that the rays were when they hit. So you can see that the part under the chin is darkest, and that's because it's closest to the mesh. So that gives us like 3D depth information basically about what's above the surface of this plane. We have hit position, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's positional information coming from the mesh that's above. And finally, we have hit normal, which when a ray hits a face, it's just going to tell us the normal direction of that face. All right, so we can turn this around. Let's apply the rotation to this as well. And you can see that's given us actual information about which way these faces are pointed, even though they're part of different mesh. So there's already people who are coming up with some quite cool stuff with this feature. It's one of those things, I think over time, people are going to figure out some really, really awesome stuff you can do with it. If you have been experimenting with it, please tag me in whatever you've done. I would love to say that. One thing that I've always found needlessly confusing in computer graphics is the fact that there's two almost identical standards for normal maps. There's OpenGL and there's DirectX. Blender uses OpenGL, but DirectX is used by lots of big mainstream software, so you can find those textures all over the place, but they won't work out of the box in Blender. At least they won't look the way they should look. You have to do some node magic. So if we add a separate color and a combine color, and just connect these channels up, so blue to blue, green to green, and then we stick an invert color in the middle of the green channel, we can now swap these over. Right, so that would fix the problem. Hopefully you can see here, like the shadow on this side, it like changes to the other side. Right, so sometimes that will make things that look like they should be in, like the mortar here, or on some textures would look like it's popping out, unless you added this fix. Now, we have this built into the normal map. It's just inside the node, so you just select whichever one you're using. Like you can see here, it actually says normal map DirectX in the name. So we know this is not made for Blender, it's made for DirectX, so that's the one that we would have selected. Don't need any of this anymore. It's just built into the node, and that should have been done a long time ago. There's also a new snapping option. If you go to the snapping menu up here, and we look down the bottom, we now have an option called Face Center, which in usual Blender style does exactly what you'd expect it to do. We grab this here, and I'm just going to hold down Control, and you can see that's actually snapping the corner of this cube to the middle of these different faces. Right, so it's going to put it in the exact center point of these faces. Now, maybe if you didn't want it to behave like this, I might want the origin to go there instead of a random corner. You just go over to here and change the snap place from closest to active. And now that will snap the actual origin of the cube right onto the middle of the face. So Blender has a really handy little feature called quad mode. If you press Control, Alt, and Q, it will show you your workspace from 4 different views. I use this all the time when I'm modeling. It locks the camera on some of these as well, so you can't accidentally move them, like you can't orbit around them. There's only going to be one of these where you can move around, but one problem that I've always had with this is the fact that the windows are fixed. Usually I want 1 or 2 of the windows to be a bit bigger, and I just want smaller windows down the side just to keep an eye on what I'm doing. But now you can actually just grab the middle and resize these. This is a really great little feature. I'm going to be using this a lot. So you can work on a model over here and just have some smaller versions down the side where you can still see what you're doing. So the final thing I want to talk about today is a area of Blender that I never normally talk about because it's something I don't really use very often myself, and I'm not very qualified to talk about it, but that is Grease Pencil. There's been a big update to something in Grease Pencil that I think is worth mentioning. So if I add a blank here, and then let's go to draw mode, we now have some broke out options over here for stroke, right? So that's just exactly what you'd expect. You just draw a shape. You have fill. Let's just come in from the side. You have fill, which is just going to fill an area in like this. And you have both, which is going to give you a fill with an outline around it. So the problem that we always had in Blender is there was no way to actually cut out of these shapes. There was a workaround that people used to use, I believe, with like materials and holdouts and things, but there was no native way to just cut a shape out. But now, if I just draw some shapes on here and then go over to edit mode, make sure I've got all of this selected, stroke, and then join fills or Shift J, and it will cut them out. Like I said, I don't normally talk about Grease Pencil, but I know that's been a bit of a gripe for people for a long time that you couldn't just cut these things out. So that's going to be a really big change for people who use Grease Pencil. So before I wrap this one up, it's also worth mentioning that there's been a lot of changes in the background to this version of Blender, just working on things like performance and stability and things that aren't really flashy features but are important to making Blender better. Especially when it comes to animations, I believe there's something like 150 to 300% improvement on animations, especially for shape keys. So if you regularly animate things that have a lot of heavy shape keys in them, then that's going to be a lot more performant in this version of Blender. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure you check out the link in the description to pick up my new course, the Essential Material Guide, or any of my other courses at 35% off at the moment if you use the code SAVE35.